immediately, repealing and replacing the disaster known as Obamacare.
All right, that was now President-elect Donald Trump promising to repeal and replace Obamacare. Now, today, according to the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Trump said he would consider leaving in place two parts of the law. The report reads, quote, Mr. Trump said he favors keeping the prohibition against insurers denying coverage because of pre-existing conditions and a provision that allows parents to provide years of additional coverage for their children on their insurance policies. By the way, both Republican plans to replace had those provisions in them. Joining us now, former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer, and the man that had a very bad week, but it's going to be good for the country because now we can undo all the damage of Austin's horrific economic plan. I guess we can't undo the damage of the debt, more debt than every president before him combined. Now, how do we undo that, Austin?
Well, I can tell you how, but it doesn't begin with electing Trump. You're right, it was a tough week for me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, and you owe me money, but we'll deal with that on another show. You know, look, Ari, this is going to be a lot harder than just saying repeal and replace, because now we've got to put in place a plan where people can transition, hopefully to health care savings accounts. Every Republican plan included pre-existing conditions that I saw: portability, job to job, buying across state lines, and free market competition for the plans. But now getting off of Obamacare, how long does that take?
Well, you put your finger on. The repeal part was always the easy part. The replace part was always the harder part. But now Republicans have to honor both. I think it would have been more artful today if the president-elect said we're going to repeal Obamacare, and when we replace it, there are provisions that I might want to include in it. He'd have been better off if he had put it that way.
He did say that, though. That's what he said.
Well, he said, and if you look at the Wall Street Journal story, he says we're going to edit or modify, repeal or replace Obamacare. He shouldn't say modify. You
repeal
I agree with that. And then
but he was very clear on the campaign trail to repeal and replace.
That's correct. And he needs to stick with that, and so do the Republicans in Congress. But what's going to end up with is going to be a much skinnier provision, probably much more along the lines of catastrophic health care, instead of these government-mandated gold, silver, bronze plans for people. I think you're going to see a much more simplified, skinny version that provides people with catastrophic care.
Yeah. I mean, how much will the taxpayers end up having to subsidize as well? At some point, now that Obama took on more debt than 43 other presidents, we've got a debt problem, and we also have an interest rate problem that at some point those rates are going to go up, and that's going to impact the interest that we're paying back on the debt. Ari?
Well,
Austin, go ahead.
Oh, Ari? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Austin.
I think if he's going to start thinking on the deficit and debt way, I think that's going to run head first into his tax plan that he's outlined as one of his first priorities, because he's not proposing ways to pay for that tax plan. So I think he's going to have to set some priorities here. I hope, clearly he won the election. He won by the opposite of a landslide. In previous very close elections, there are different approaches. John Kennedy's approach when he won by a whisker was to say, okay, look, I realize that half the country didn't want me here, and I want to be a unifier, so I'm going to start my priorities with the things that we can agree on, and then we'll move to the next things. I think if Trump does that, if he starts with the infrastructure, if he starts with some of the more unifying things, I think he could be a very successful president. Why
would he implement your agenda? I think he should start with the wall.
I'm not talking about my agenda.
He should start with the wall.
The majority of America,
the lowest corporate tax rate, repatriation of trillions. He should start with repealing, replacing Obamacare. He should start with education back to the states. I mean,
okay, but look,
he won.
If it involves 20 million people losing their insurance, he won. He won very narrowly, and actually more Americans voted for his opponent than voted for him. So I just think
let's cut to the chase. Let's cut to the chase here. All of this comes down to the central issue of our times, which is economic growth and the lack thereof in the last 8 years. If what President Trump can put into place are provisions through corporate tax reform, individual tax reform, and policies that get economic growth revved up, It solves all the problems, Sean, you were raising about interest rates, about the deficit, about the debt, about revenues. All of this is tied to growth, and this has been the failure of the Obama years. It's what led to so much dissatisfaction among working class people because they haven't gotten raises. Economic growth is the cornerstone of it all, and this is what the Trump presidency will rise or fall upon.
You know what? I totally agree.
I agree with
that's
that.
why the lower tax rate, first of all, will go from 7 to 3. The lower corporate tax rate will incentivize corporations to build factories, manufacturing centers, the one-time 10% tax on trillions overseas, repatriation. That will be a boon to the economy. And one more factor, energy independence. You know, if we had a goal of energy independence in 4 years, include the Keystone Pipeline, drilling, fracking, and coal mining, millions of jobs can be created almost immediately. And I know that poor Austin Goolsbee won't like it, but the rest of America
That's not
will.
poor. Look, if those work, then that would be great. All I would caution, and he respects you, Sean, and I want you to talk to him. If he just is going to propose the things that George W. Bush proposed when he came into office, the growth slowdown did not start with Obama. It started with Bush. And
it started
if
with
he can
Clinton.
break out of that, that'd be great. I want him to break out.
No, Austin, absolutely not. The growth slowdown started in the summer of 2000. As you know, George Bush inherited a mild recession. September 11th turned it into an even worse economy, and the economy boomed from 2003 to 2007 as the Bush tax cuts took place.
It barely boomed and was followed by the worst downturn of our lifetimes.
Wrong.
We can agree on that.
All right, we got to let it go there, guys. Well, the Community Reinvestment Act definitely played a part in hurting the economy, and Bush paid the price. Yes. You can't lend money to people that can't afford to pay it back, Austin, unless you're going to pay it back.
Stick to the tax cuts.
You're
Let's
a rich
see if that
Republican.
works. We can agree on growth.
All right, good to see you both. And up next, tonight on Hannity.